Ever feel like you're just drowning in to-dos?
Oh,
Like
no.
the second you check one thing off the list, 3 more magically appear.
It's the worst.
Well, you are not alone.
Definitely not.
And that's why we are diving into Master Your Day by Tyler Andrew Cole.
Good book.
So Cole says if you can master your day, you can master your life.
Yeah.
And honestly, who couldn't use a little more mastery in their life right now?
I could definitely use a little more mastery.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about some like magic productivity hack here.
Yeah.
Right. It's deeper than that.
It's about intentionality, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Cole's argument is that small daily actions, when you repeat them consistently, can lead to huge lasting change.
Okay.
It's like compound interest, but for your life.
Okay, I like where this is going. So it's less about cramming more into our already jam-packed days and more about making sure that what we are doing actually matters.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Before we go on with the podcast, I invite you to download the free bundle, which contains the ebook and an executive summary of all the chapters with the key takeaways. Click on the first link in the description to claim your free bundle now and maximize your learning potential. Now it's free, but it won't be for long, so make sure to grab it while you can.
So Cole kicks things off with this idea of foundation first.
Mm-hmm.
He's big on the morning routine, but not the kind you might be picturing.
Okay.
This isn't about like waking up at dawn to meditate and chug green juice.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with your core values from the moment you open your eyes.
That's a refreshing take.
Yeah.
I like that. So have you ever actually sat down and like articulated your values?
Yeah, it's tough.
Because I'll admit for a long time, I felt like a ship without a compass. Just drifting through my days.
Yeah. A ship without a compass is a great way to describe it. It's why this whole foundational piece is so important. Because when your actions, like you said, align with your values, it's like this internal shift happens.
Right.
Suddenly your to-do list isn't just a bunch of tasks, right?
Yeah.
It's a roadmap to a more fulfilling life.
I like that.
And Cole, he suggests reflecting on your most fulfilling moments and then kind of working backward. Like, what were the values that were present in those moments? It's a really powerful exercise to bring those values to the forefront.
So we've got our values compass pointed in the right direction. Now what?
Yeah.
Time to tackle that to-do list.
Not so fast.
Okay.
So in his chapter on strategic planning, Cole introduces a tool called the Eisenhower matrix.
Okay.
Now, before you think this is just another productivity matrix,
No.
hear me out. Okay. Imagine a simple 2x2 grid. Okay.
You got urgent on one axis, important on the other.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not about prioritizing just the urgent things or just the important things. It's about finding the sweet spot where they intersect.
Okay, so I'm visualizing this matrix.
Yeah.
And so we've all got those urgent and important tasks,
Right.
the ones we feel like we have to deal with like right now.
Yes.
But I have a feeling most of us are probably pretty good at like already identifying those.
We're good at the urgent stuff.
It's the other quadrants that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
What about those?
Right. So that important but not urgent quadrant.
Yes. Tell me more.
That's where things get interesting.
Oh, so those are the tasks that are aligned with your long-term goals, your values, the things that really move the needle. But because they're not on fire, like right this second, they often get pushed aside. And Cole's argument is that being strategic means allocating time for these tasks, even when they're not screaming for our attention.
Which probably means we need to get real about what's living in that urgent but not important quadrant.
Oh, 100%.
Those things that we tell ourselves we have to deal with right now, but in reality are just distractions from what actually matters.
Yes, 100%. They're just distractions disguised as important things.
Yes, exactly.
Before we continue, I want to remind you that you can always find the free audiobook version of this book on the main Grow to the Top channel. Click on the second link in the description to start listening now.
And then, of course, we've got the not urgent, not important tasks.
Right.
And ideally, we want to eliminate those entirely.
Yeah, get those out of here.
Right, exactly. But the Eisenhower matrix, it forces you to confront how you're spending your time and make conscious choices about where your energy is going. Imagine the power of identifying your peak energy time and using that to tackle those important but not urgent tasks, the ones that, we talked about that really align with your values and goals.
I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
So it's not about becoming like a robotic taskmaster.
No.
It's about like aligning your actions with what truly matters to you.
Exactly.
But let's be real.
Please.
Even with the best intentions and like a perfectly crafted matrix, there's one thing that always seems to get in the way.
What's that?
Procrastination.
Procrastination. Yes. The worst.
I know. So
It's a struggle.
it is a struggle.
Absolutely. And Cole tackles this head on in his chapter on execution edge. He actually offers this brilliant reframe on procrastination.
Okay.
He says it's not laziness. It's often a signal from our brain that something about the task is making us uncomfortable.
So something about the task is making us uncomfortable.
Right.
So what's Cole's solution for overcoming these procrastination roadblocks?
Well, he introduces this like deceptively simple but surprisingly powerful tool
Okay.
called the 2-minute rule.
2-minute rule. All right.
So if a task takes less than 2 minutes to do, you do it right away. No excuses.
Okay. I can get behind that for those like tiny tasks, like replying to a quick email.
Yeah.
Or like filing something away.
Right.
But what about the bigger projects?
Yeah.
The ones that make my to-do list look more like a to don't even think about it list. 2 minutes seems almost laughable.
Well, that's where the real beauty of the 2-minute rule comes in. You're not trying to complete the entire project in 2 minutes. You're simply committing to taking the first tiny step. So you identify the smallest possible action you can take to move forward and set a timer for 2 minutes. You'll be surprised how often those 2 minutes turn into 5, then 10, and before you know it, you've broken through that initial resistance.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like tricking your brain into getting started.
Exactly.
Okay. But even if we're like mastering our to-do lists and conquering procrastination, there's another challenge that's almost impossible to avoid in today's world.
What's that?
Distractions.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right.
They're the worst.
Yes. And Cole dedicates an entire chapter to this called Focus Formula, right? He acknowledges we're not living in a vacuum. We've got notifications, emails, people needing things constantly. But instead of trying to become like superhuman focus machines,
Right.
he encourages us to work with our natural focus rhythms
Oh, okay.
instead of against them.
That makes sense. So he talks about the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah.
Which I've experimented with in the past.
Yep.
But instead of like sticking rigidly to those 25-minute work blocks, I found that customizing the intervals to my own kind of energy levels is key.
Okay.
Sometimes when my focus is the sharpest, I'll do like a 15-minute sprint and then take like a longer break to recharge.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great example of like adapting the technique to fit your own needs.
Right.
You know, the key takeaway here is intentionality. It's about like consciously choosing where your focus goes, not letting it be dictated by the ping of your inbox or, you know, the latest social media notification.
And that kind of intentionality requires a different kind of energy.
Yes.
The kind that can't just be fueled by caffeine and willpower.
Yeah. It's tough.
Speaking of, how many of us hit a wall by like Wednesday afternoon?
Oh, every week
Right.
it's like clockwork.
Running on fumes,
Yeah.
struggling to like stay productive.
Yep. Happens to the best of us.
So what do we do about that?
Well, that's where Cole's chapter on energy amplifiers comes in.
Okay.
He completely debunks this myth of the always-on worker.
Okay.
You know, and he argues that short bursts of activity can actually make a huge difference in our energy levels. So like even just standing up from your desk to stretch or taking a quick walk around the block can work wonders.
I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes when I'm feeling mentally drained, like the last thing I want to do is move my body.
Right.
But I've learned that even a few minutes of movement can completely shift like my energy and my focus.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Totally, yeah. It's like a reset button for your brain.
Yes.
Yeah. And Cole also dives into the science behind this a little bit. He explains how our bodies naturally go through these peaks and troughs of energy throughout the day.
Wow.
And it's not about, you know, fighting against those natural rhythms, but learning to work with them.
So you're saying that like powering through isn't always the most effective approach.
Exactly. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is take a break.
Interesting. But even with the best laid plans and energy management strategies, life has a way of throwing curveballs our way.
Oh, always.
So what happens when things inevitably don't go according to plan?
Right. Well, that's where Cole's background in systems thinking really shines.
Okay.
In his chapter on course corrections, he argues that it's not about being rigid, but about being adaptable.
Okay.
Life is messy and unpredictable.
Yes, it is.
And our ability to like navigate those unexpected twists and turns is what sets us up for true mastery.
So it's not about like clinging to our perfectly crafted schedules no matter what. Because let's be real, we've all been there, trying to like force a plan when everything is falling apart around us.
We've all been there. It never worked.
It's like trying to swim upstream.
Exactly. And he introduces this concept called the ODA loop.
ODA loop.
Yeah, it stands for observe, orient, decide, act. And it's a military strategy, but it's incredibly relevant to those moments when life throws us a curveball.
Okay, I like it.
So let's say you get a call that your child needs to be picked up from school early,
Oh, yeah.
right? First, you observe, okay, this changes things. Then you orient yourself. How important is this, like, relative to what I was doing?
Right.
Right. Then you decide, wait, do I need to delegate something else? And then finally you act on that decision.
It's like a mental framework for dealing with the unexpected.
Yes.
Instead of like panicking or letting our emotions hijack our response, we can like approach the situation strategically.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that unexpected things happen and having a system in place to navigate those challenges effectively. But course corrections aren't just about like reacting to those external changes.
Okay.
Cole also emphasizes the importance of using what we learn each day to make adjustments for tomorrow.
Okay.
This is where the power of daily reflection comes in.
Ah, yes. The art of ending your day with intention instead of collapsing in a heap of exhaustion and unfinished to-do lists.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I have to admit, I'm definitely more familiar with the latter scenario than the former.
Yeah, it's definitely a common struggle. But Cole argues that ending your day on a positive note is essential for setting the tone for the next day. And he talks about keeping a success journal, but he emphasizes it's not a to-do list, right? It's about taking a few moments to acknowledge your wins, no matter how small they may seem.
I love that because sometimes just getting through the day feels like a win in itself.
Oh, 100%.
Especially when those unexpected curveballs come our way.
Absolutely. And by taking the time to like celebrate those wins, no matter how small, we're rewiring our brains to focus on progress, not just on what's still left to do.
So we're talking about ending the day on a positive note, celebrating those small wins, and using that momentum to like propel us forward.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how does this all tie into the bigger picture?
Right. So we're mastering our days, but what about mastering our lives?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big promise.
It is a big promise, and that's where Cole's final chapter, Lifelong Mastery, comes in.
Okay.
He argues this isn't just about checking things off a to-do list.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It's about the person you're becoming through these daily practices.
Like, as you consistently show up with intention, aligning your actions with your values, you're not just mastering your day, you're mastering yourself.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you're building an internal operating system for success.
Okay.
And once those foundational skills are in place, they become almost second nature.
Right. Because think about it. When you were first learning to drive, it probably felt overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
So many things to think about at once.
Absolutely.
But over time, those actions become automatic. You don't have to consciously remind yourself how to like brake or accelerate.
Right.
And Cole's argument is that the same principle applies to these like daily mastery techniques.
Yeah.
The more consistently you practice them, the more effortless they become. And then it's freeing up like your mental bandwidth for even bigger challenges and aspirations.
Exactly.
That's such a powerful concept. It's not about reaching some like arbitrary finish line, but it's about embracing that journey of continuous growth and improvement.
It's a never-ending process.
Right.
And it's about recognizing that, like, this mastery isn't a solo endeavor, you know?
Okay.
Like, when you show up as your best self, you're more focused, you're energized, you're intentional, it creates this ripple effect that extends far beyond your own to-do list.
You're not just mastering your own day, but you're potentially influencing your team, your family, like your whole sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Imagine if everyone around you started embracing these principles.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
It transforms this from like a personal productivity pursuit to something much more profound. It becomes about how these small daily acts of mastery can contribute to like a more productive, fulfilling world.
That's incredibly inspiring. So for our listener out there, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe even a little skeptical,
Yeah.
what's the one thing, the most actionable takeaway we want them to walk away with from this deep dive?
If I had to choose just one thing, it would be Cole's emphasis on starting small.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one thing from this deep dive that resonated with you. Maybe it's the 2-minute rule. Maybe it's identifying your core values.
Right.
And commit to it for a week. Just see how it feels. You might be surprised by the impact even a small change can make.
It's about progress, not perfection. And what I appreciate about Master Your Day is that Cole provides so many practical tools and techniques. It's not just motivational fluff. It's actionable advice you can implement today.
Absolutely.
So for our listener, no matter where you are on your journey of personal mastery, remember this. Every day is a fresh start.
That's a great way to put it.
A chance to make intentional choices that move you closer to the life you want to create.
I love that.
Well, on that note, I'm feeling inspired to go master my day. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these powerful ideas with you. Until next time, here's to mastering your day, one intentional choice at a time.